Hi, I'm Novel Mike, and this is my opinion. No camera today. I have a lot of stuff in the way, and I really don't want to mess with that, so I'm just going to show you footage of Final Fantasy 15, which is what I'm going to be talking about. Final Fantasy 15 actually is coming out in 2 days, and that is crazy to me. This game has been in development for a decade, and when they re-revealed the game as Final Fantasy 15 back a couple years ago at E3, after the PS4 had been announced and whatnot, I really had high expectations of the game, but the more I saw of it, the less I really paid attention to it. I've honestly, I've watched some of the trailers. I haven't watched a lot. I played the first demo they put out, which I really didn't care for. I have not played any of the demos since. I have not played any of the updates to the original demo or anything like that, largely because I think I just wanted to go in to this game with the knowledge I already had and decide for myself if the game's actually going to be any good or not. I've read some story spoilers, so I'm not completely in the dark if any of those are right, but honestly, the story is what I think a lot of people play Final Fantasy for, but Square Enix doesn't know how to make a good story anymore. I hate to say that, but it's pretty true. If you even look at a series like Kingdom Hearts, which I am a huge fan of, despite me being such a big fan and I cannot wait to play Kingdom Hearts 3 and see how the story ends, it is a convoluted piece of garbage at this point that involves time travel and so many other elements that make absolutely no sense to the original idea of the story that it's just gotten ridiculous. And I do want to see how the story ends, mainly because I've been invested for so long, but I cannot say that story is super great or anything. And most of the other Final Fantasy games haven't been great since, 13 was awful. I never played the sequels. 12 wasn't very good, even though I know a lot of people like it. 11 was online. I guess 10 was pretty good for the most part. There are faults with it, but so yeah, PS2 era, let's just say, was when Square Enix could still make a good story, and that's mostly when they were still Squaresoft. And I just don't think they have the people there anymore for the story to really be that great. Not when I've played other JRPGs that really know how to tell a story and build a world and whatnot in a much better way. I think Final Fantasy 15 is going to be very flashy. I think it's going to be huge and expansive and interesting and very beautiful. But the narrative is probably the one thing I have no faith in whatsoever, and I'm honestly okay with that. I'm kind of trashing on it before I played it. It could turn out to be very different than I expect, but, for the most part, I have not seen Square Enix show me in any of the trailers why I should care about hardly any of these characters or what they're going through, and they've really tried to sell the story on this game very hard, and I just don't think that it's as impressive as they think that I think they think that the story is more impressive than what it's actually going to be to most consumers. And now a lot of people have already gotten the game. They shipped out the special editions early, and stuff like that. I'll just be getting my normal copy on Tuesday because I don't need any of that other BS. But for the most part, I'm just going into this game thinking, I don't know as much about it as I probably would if I was still hyped up for it. I'm going to play the game. I think I'm going to like it a lot. At least I hope I do. I don't think it's going to be bad like 13 was. I think it'll be at least pretty good. But I don't expect it to change the world or anything. I don't expect it to be a Final Fantasy 6 or a Final Fantasy 9 or hell, even a Final Fantasy 7, which I personally do not care for that much. I think that it's just going to be a very beautiful and fun game to play, but I don't think that the story or its characters are really that great from what I've seen so far, which is the main thing they've tried to sell time and time again. The character of Luna, I just do not like at all, and I really don't like that they changed her character completely from when she was another character called Stella, even though they pretty much look almost the same. And the whole idea of that character being somewhat of an antagonist to Noctis and being this kind of Romeo and Juliet story, that was interesting to me when it was still Final Fantasy Versus 13. And the character of Luna is just not that, and the plot is not that. And I don't think it's going to be very good. And that sucks for me because I do like playing games for their story. And that's one of the things that I really love about many games, and I hate the fact that I'm going into this game just expecting the story to not be very good, but that's where I am right now. From the little I've seen of gameplay of the trailers, the gameplay looks like it's definitely much better than it was when I first played the demo, which I thought was not good, and I was worried about it. But that was over a year ago now, and at this point, I'm just kind of looking at this game, and I'm perplexed because I want it to be good, I want it to blow me away, but I just don't think it's going to. But at the same time, I think that is the right mindset to go into the thing, because by not being automatically blown away by it, at the very least, I'm expecting that I might not like it as much as I would if I was really hyped up for it. And that can be an okay thing and an okay mindset to be in, because when you're not hyped up, then your expectations aren't super high and get crushed by just something unrealistic. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Final Fantasy 15 could be amazing, or it could be really terrible, or it could just be kind of mediocre. But either way, I think I'm going to be okay with it. Because after this long 10-year journey, the game is finally coming out. And I think that even if the game isn't what I want it to be, I think enough of what I liked in the original concept of Final Fantasy Versus 13 is still there, and I'm going to enjoy that. I do hope that Square Enix does take some notes from this, because there's no reason this game should have taken as long as it did to come out, and they need to stop announcing games so early in advance. Like, even this game being Final Fantasy 15 and changing it from Versus 13, they still announced it way too soon. I mean, it was 2.5 years ago, and it was delayed, and even right before it was about to come out, like a month before it was about to come out, it got delayed again. And I think that killed some of the hype for me as well, because it felt like, okay, it's finished, it's finally coming out, month away. Oh wait, no, it's not. We need 3 more months to make sure that we don't have a day 1 patch, and now it still has a day 1 patch. Which just tells me that it's just been in development hell, and I think that it's going to have at least some problems. I'm really curious on reviews on this game and how consumers are going to respond to it, because the AAA industry has certainly not done so well this holiday season. I mean, granted, it's now post-Black Friday. That could have changed from Black Friday and sales and all that. But before Black Friday, like the entire industry, the AAA market was just not doing well at all, unless you were Battlefield. I don't even think Call of Duty was doing that well. So I'll be very curious to see how reviews treat this game. I think they're either going to be all very positive if it is really that good, or it's going to be extremely mixed. I don't think it's going to be everyone just hating on the game. I don't think everyone's going to say, oh, it's just mediocre. Either everyone's going to love it, or there's going to be all kinds of scores and expressed opinions and whatnot, and that will be very interesting. Consumers and how the way that it's actually purchased, if people buy into it, it's Final Fantasy. I think it will sell well worldwide regardless of anything else. But I'm really curious to see how well it does during this holiday season, since, so many other games are out, and there aren't a lot of games at the very least like Final Fantasy released right now, so it may do really well just because of that. But I think that in the end, no matter what happens with this game, I'm glad that, even if it's terrible, I'm glad that it's out. I'm glad that it's done. So I don't have to keep asking questions about it. I don't have to keep looking back at Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailers and thinking, what if? What could have been? And I can see now that this is the game that they decided to go with, and it's finished and it's done. And I want Square Enix to move on from that, because I think that they need to really look at Final Fantasy as a whole, what it means to be a Final Fantasy game, and focus more on the narrative and the story going forward, and not just amazing visuals and great music and larger than life worlds and that kind of thing. Final Fantasy was at its best when it was simple, when they were restricted by the technologies of the time. And now in the modern era, they can make games look so outstandingly crazy that they forget that to tie that beautiful art and music and everything in the world together, you have to have a cohesive and interesting story with a great cast of characters that people relate to and love. And that's what they nailed so well with Final Fantasy VI. And even though I don't like it, Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy IX. And even those games were both, the latter of those two games were more flashy, they were still limited somewhat by the technology of their time. And I think Square Enix needs to go back to their roots, and that it doesn't matter if the game looks the way Final Fantasy 15 does, or better for Final Fantasy 16 or the 7 remake or whatever. People want to play a game that has in general, just an amazing story with interesting characters that are fun to play as, with a good battle system, and just a good idea of a concept of a game, instead of just trying to make everything as pretty as it can be. I don't think that's really needed. People aren't really counting the polygons. It makes a good trailer, sure, but it isn't what people end up thinking about, 4 or 5 years from now when they think about replaying that game. No one goes back and plays Final Fantasy VII because the graphics were so amazing for their time, or even just for how poorly it is now. People see now how poorly that game actually looks, and that's one reason they wanted to see a remake of it. And so because of that, I think that I'm glad that the game is finally coming out, and I hope that no matter what the game ends up doing, that Square Enix at least takes away that they need to focus more on the story, characters, and narrative, rather than just making the game look super flashy and impressive. Because that only lasts for so long before people get tired of it. And the way graphics are now, you can't keep pushing the limits so much before people start to think that it doesn't look as impressive. Like, sure, Final Fantasy 15 looks good, but if you go back and look at the trailers for Final Fantasy Versus 13, it's not that big of a step up. And so in 10 years, you can't even make it look that much better? I don't know. I guess for me, I care more about story and characters than anything else. And I think that's what made Final Fantasy so popular and made it the giant it is today. And Square Enix has lost that, and they need to get back to it. But anyway, this has gone on a little bit longer than I intended to. So I'm Novel Mike. That was my opinion. I am looking forward to playing Final Fantasy 15, so I'll say Versus 13 again, in just 2 days, and I hope you are too if you're a fan, and I hope it also blows all of us away, and all the complaints I'm having about, what I've seen so far in the characters and everything are wrong, and that it's an amazing story with great characters. I'm just not counting on it. But anyway, have a great day, everybody. See you later. Bye. Hi, I'm Novel Mike, and thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed this, please like and leave a comment down below, and if you really liked it, please share it with your friends. If you would like to see more from me, check out the other videos on the screen right now. And if you would like to see more content from me in the future, click the subscribe button. Thanks. Bye.